Like I'm thinking of maybe like a specific product that somebody else is designing a package for this thing of their company, and then you have to design this one. How do you make sure that they kind of like both match up to look as like their brand image?
Right. So each brand when it's developed or when it's been around, or when it's the existence of each brand, they have brand guidelines. And so everybody that would work on that brand has the brand guidelines. And then for each year that they do the work, there's also like strategic creative guidelines as well. Mm. So the campaign looks like this. The packaging needs to match that campaign if it's like a limited time offering or something like that. But if it's a legacy brand, there's a brand guidelines and we can tweak it. We work to, optimize it as we're going along. Mm-hmm. But yeah, there's usually a strict set of guidelines. And so people don't really understand that packaging changes like all the time. Mm-hmm. Like the packaging that you buy, it changes like almost every 6 months. You just would never notice it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how that works.
So like the guidelines might be like a specific font that they use or colors and stuff?
Yep. Specific fonts, very specific colors. Okay. Usually most brands have a PMS color associated with their brand.
What's that mean?
It's a Pantone matching system.
Okay.
And so you have consistency of color across wherever your brand is printed or whatever product is printed out there. It's a very specific colorway that is used. So you have brand consistency across all the different products that are out there for a specific brand.
Gotcha. Okay. So what's kind of like the process of like a brand comes to you and they give you their vision and stuff? How do you incorporate it, kind of like work through like designing per se like a package?
Right. When we're approached by a client, usually, well, it just depends, but usually it starts with a brief. They either have a brief already developed, a creative brief, which is sort of the roadmap or the plan of what they want to communicate, what they want this to look like, what it's for, who it's for, mm-hmm. What the demographics are, what the shape of the packaging or execution is. So we get all that in this design brief. And then then there's also sort of there's part of the brief that talks about, the personality and sort of like what we're trying to get through to consumers. And, do we want it to be more modern, or it just really depends on what the client is looking for. But then we use that brief. That's kind of our roadmap to develop multiple concepts. So we'll look at that brief and say, okay, here's 5 different ways to execute it, creative ways to execute it. And we do that on maybe 1 or 2 different packs that they have. And then we share that first round of concepts, if you will, graphic concepts with the client. And the client will say, yeah, I really like that one, or that one really fits what we're trying to achieve with this brief. And so that's what we work to do, is kind of like make sure that we're delivering on the brief, mm-hmm. And each one of the specific points that they're trying to get across. There's also a thing called hierarchy on each package that we need, and we make sure that they provide. And if they don't provide it, we ask a lot of questions about the hierarchy. But it's really important for when you're looking at a product, you understand, number one, what the brand is, and then what the proposition, what the product is, and then mm-hmm. what the proposition is, or what the brand proposition is. And so that's kind of the first thing that we work with, is that design brief that tells us what all that is. Okay. And so, for instance, in hierarchy, if you look at a product or a package, the brand is 9 times out of 10, or it should be the biggest thing, the first thing that your eye sees.
Okay. So the hierarchy is kind of like of when you look at the package, it's what your eyes kind of like visualize too.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's like the timeline of like a product? Like you said, like the brief, then how quick do samples turn around, or like the concepts?
Sure. So it generally we're like 2 to 3 weeks to get first round graphics to the client. We go probably anywhere from 2 months to 4 months when we're developing packaging for a product. Sometimes it goes a little bit longer, mm-hmm. But that's kind of how it goes. And so when you're developing packaging, you start with approvals at the brand management level, the people that have brought you the product or brought you the project, mm-hmm. and then you move up to their bosses, and they have to approve what it looks like, and then they move up to the next level that they approve what it looks like. And so all along the way, there's revisions and revisions and revisions to what it looks like to make sure that everyone that's on the approval chain has their input, and they basically touched it.
Right.
Sometimes that works out well. Sometimes it's like too many people are trying to tell us what to do.
Yeah.
And too many cooks in the kitchen on it. But generally, there are small tweaks once you get a little bit higher and higher.
Right. Yeah. So it's like a hierarchy of like, you have to bring it to this person, then that person, then that person. They all have to approve it type of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Absolutely.